All right, let's cut through all the noise in the JavaScript world today. We're going to tackle the big question. When we're talking about Bun versus Node.js, what is the reality in a production environment? You've seen it everywhere, right? The tweets, the blog posts, the flashy graphs. Bun is 10x faster than Node.js. I mean, that's a huge claim, and it's definitely gotten everyone's attention. It sounds like a total game changer. And that is the million-dollar question. When your app is actually live, serving real people, talking to databases, hitting APIs, does that raw synthetic speed actually make your system better or cheaper or even noticeably faster for the end user? Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down. So to really get what's going on, we've got to pop the hood. We need to look at how these two runtimes are actually built because they come from two totally different schools of thought. And those design choices, they affect everything else down the line. Okay, so you can see right away these are two completely different animals. Node.js, it's built on V8, the same engine that powers Chrome, and it uses libuv for handling I/O. It's all battle-tested, rock-solid stuff. Bun, though, it takes a completely different route. It uses JavaScriptCore from Safari, and it's written in Zig, which is a really modern, low-level language. And, a huge difference, it builds tools like the bundler and transpiler right in. The whole goal is to strip away layers and just be faster from the ground up. So where does that 10x faster number even come from? Well, it all starts with benchmarks. And it's important to remember that benchmarks are basically lab experiments. They're designed to test one specific thing in a perfect, isolated environment. And this is the benchmark that started it all. If you're just running a simple server that does nothing but say hello world, yeah, Bun's performance is absolutely mind-blowing. It's built for this. It has so few layers between your code and the metal that it just flies. This is where all the hype begins. But, and this is the most important but of this whole discussion, production systems are not benchmarks. Not even close. They're complicated, they're messy, they're full of other things that take time. Think about it. Your app's actual response time is the sum of all its parts. You've got database queries that can take forever, you're waiting on other APIs, you're dealing with caching, you're running authentication checks, the list goes on. The runtime itself is just a tiny slice of that pie. Making that one slice 10 times faster doesn't really matter if your database query is the giant piece that's slowing everything down. And this laser focus on just the benchmark numbers leads to some pretty big myths that can really send you down the wrong path. So let's do a little myth busting and separate the hype from the reality of production. All right, myth number one, and this is a big one. If the runtime is 10 times faster, my cloud bill will be 10 times smaller. I mean, it makes sense on the surface, right? Less compute time should mean less cost. But the reality is, for most of us, raw compute isn't even the most expensive part of our stack anymore. Go look at your cloud bill. It's probably dominated by your managed database instances, your load balancers, and especially data transfer costs. Shaving a few milliseconds off your CPU time is great, but it's barely going to make a dent in the total bill when those other things are the real money pits. Myth number two. If I just switch to this new, faster runtime, my whole system will magically become more scalable. This one confuses how fast one machine is with how well your whole system can handle more load. See, a faster runtime helps with vertical scaling. That's like putting a bigger engine in one car. But modern apps don't do that. They scale horizontally. They add more cars to the road. Your real bottleneck isn't the speed of one car. It's the traffic jam at the bridge, which is your database connection limit or the rate limit on some third-party service you rely on. A faster engine doesn't fix a traffic jam. So if faster isn't always the answer, how are you supposed to choose? Let's get really practical and lay out a framework for picking the right tool for the right job. You're going to want to stick with Node.js for those big, mature enterprise systems. When stability and reliability are your number one priority, you just can't beat its massive, battle-hardened ecosystem. This means you have support for pretty much any native module you can think of, and it integrates seamlessly with all the heavy-duty tools, the ORMs, the application monitoring platforms that large-scale apps absolutely depend on. Now, Bun, this is where things get really interesting. Bun is a fantastic choice for brand new, greenfield projects where you can be really deliberate about your dependencies. It absolutely shines in serverless and on the edge. Why? Because its startup time is practically zero. And that is a killer feature that directly reduces that annoying cold start latency for users. So if you're building a very specific, high-performance service that doesn't need a million external libraries, Bun's raw speed becomes a real, tangible advantage. Okay, let's tie this all together. How do you take this back to your team and actually make the call? Here are the concrete steps you should follow. First, and most importantly, forget the Hello World benchmarks. Test your actual application in a staging environment. Second, do a full audit of your dependencies. Make sure everything you need actually works. Third, profile your application and find your real bottlenecks. Is the runtime even the problem, or is your database just crying out for an index? And finally, think about the operational costs. What's it going to take to update your CI/CD pipelines, your monitoring, and get your team up to speed? And that really leaves us with the ultimate question, doesn't it? If you were starting a new SaaS platform from scratch today, where would you place your bet? Would you go with the proven stability and the absolutely massive ecosystem of Node.js? Or would you bet on the raw, forward-looking speed of something like Bun? As we've seen, the right answer has nothing to do with hype and everything to do with what you're actually building.